Hi, College Success. This is your video for week 15, which means we are so close to being finished. So hopefully you are keeping your motivation just in all your classes in general right now as we are wrapping things up. I know this time of the year it's stressful as it is. On top of it, add COVID. So hopefully everyone's doing well. All right, so your week 15 runs from December 7th through the 13th. And so we're going to go ahead and scroll down to week 15 here. And you'll see, sorry, I just wanted to point this out real quick if you haven't already noticed. Whenever Blackboard went through an update recently, it kind of uploads my videos like this now, which I don't like as much as like the full screen type deal. So I'm going to try to figure out how to do that again. But in the meantime, there's the little new logo and upload for the videos. All right, week 15. We are in chapter 7, last chapter, so hopefully that is also exciting and encouraging that we are just about done. And you'll see that there are 3 assignments this week, a little bit more than normal because your final project is due next week. So I put 3 in this week so that next week you could just focus on getting your chapter 7 quiz done, as well as turning in your final project. And I will also open week 16 early. So I will open that that last week a little early in case anyone wants to wrap things up early. And I know some of you have been sending your PowerPoints already, your final project. I'm actually recording this video right now in week 12. I try to do a few weeks ahead of time, and I've already had people send me their projects for review. Some of them have just wanted to submit it, so that's awesome that you are finishing those things up. All right, so chapter 7. As always, in our materials folder, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint and we're just going to start going through chapter 7. And it's like, yay, we're celebrating success and some ways to stay on track, especially as we get closer to the end of our semester. So the first thing the chapter talks about is reflecting on our progress, how learning is not done when you get your grade back, essentially. There is this process called self-regulation, and I like to also think of it as like reflection, and it's really closely connected to goal setting, which we've talked about in previous chapters. So the self-regulation process is we're going to set a goal. We are going to monitor that goal. How is it going? What learning strategies am I using to meet that goal? And then reflect. How am I doing? Do I need to make adjustments? Is this working? Is this not working? So if you set a goal for, let's say, 4.0 GPA, you would monitor throughout the semester, okay, how are my grades doing? What strategies am I using to study? My time management? And if it's not going so well, it's okay to adjust your goal. Like maybe, you know what, my math class is harder than I thought it would be. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my goal to a 3.7 to allow some room for me to work on math, and next semester I'll aim higher again. It's okay to adjust those goals as long as you're aware of what you're doing. All right. Part of that is different kinds of feedback. When you get feedback, there's 2 different kinds. Cognitive is usually your own kind of feedback. It's while you are studying. So you are studying with a friend, you are using flashcards, you're using online practice quizzes, practice tests, whatever the case might be. And it's kind of thinking like, how's this going? Is this working? Does this strategy work for me? Do I understand this material? So it's that metacognition, thinking about your thinking. And then there's outcome feedback, which is what it sounds like, the outcome. What did you receive? What was the feedback from your instructor or a peer? Or, did you get a grade? Did you get comments? And then taking those and using those to move forward. And part of being reflective in this engagement process is being accurate with your own self-assessments. So, being honest with yourself, like, okay, you know what? I really don't know this. I should study more. And on the flip side, some students think they really know their material. It's called having illusions of competence, and they stop studying too soon, and then they do poorly. So just being really honest with your self-assessment, how well do you know the information, and, go from there. Chapter 7 also talks about the importance of and recognizing the role of attribution theory, making mistakes. How do you attribute your successes and failures? Is it something inside of you? Did you cause the success or failure? Did you learn from your mistake? Is it in your control? So the most productive way to view mistakes, to view failure, as well as success, really, is internal. Something within you causes the success. I don't know if you know anyone in your life who it never seems to be their fault. It was so-and-so's fault they didn't get to work on time. It was so-and-so's fault they didn't study. that's not a really productive way to look at things. So most of the time you want to look at it as internal. You know what? I didn't manage my time properly, or I did not take this as seriously as I should, or hey, I did a great job. So something within you causes your own success or failure. Therefore, it's changeable. You have the power to change that cause of success or failure. Now, of course, there are some things that are out of our control, we know, but if we can take ownership over the things that we can change and we can control, that'll give us more positive and productive attributions. This is something that you might be struggling with right now, staying motivated. I know for me, this year has been tough to stay motivated. So we're going to look at theories of motivation and see if you can find where you fit. There's a theory of behavior. We are motivated by rewards or by avoiding consequences. And so in a way, going to college, part of that is behaviorally motivated. We want a degree to get a job to make a good living. That's a behavior. That's a reward, is to get a job, hopefully that you'll be happy in, but that you're also being compensated fairly in. We also do lots of things to earn rewards or again to avoid consequences. So that's a behavioral theory of motivation. Another one is a cognitive theory of motivation, is that our thinking really controls our motivation. So if you have unproductive or negative thoughts, trying to challenge those, because what we think is kind of how we emulate into the world. So what do you do if you have negative thoughts? And I feel like I pick on math sometimes, but I hear it a lot. So I have students who say, like, I'm just not good at math. I don't like math. I don't see why I need this math. And so right then you would stop and say, well, wait a minute. Why do I feel this way? Why do I not like math? Why do I feel like it's not something that's for me? How do I know this is true? Is there another way to think of it? And then try to turn it more positive. I'm not great at math, but if I put in some time and effort, I could improve. I may not need all of this math, but at some point I will need some math. During COVID, I have learned that I needed a lot more math than I anticipated as I, was homeschooling my 3 children. And having to rethink of, a lot of this elementary math that I haven't thought about for a little while. All right. Also, how do you increase your self-efficacy to turn those thoughts more positively? So you want to know that mistakes are going to happen and expect them to happen and grow and learn from them. Use resources, access help, ask for help when you need to, take risks, try to come up with a plan, and do a lot of reflecting. All of those are going to help you with your positive thinking and increasing your self-efficacy or your self-esteem. The next theory of motivation is humanistic. It's basically we all have basic needs as humans that we need to have fulfilled before we can really succeed. And this is where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in. We all have physiological needs. We have this basic, we need to be fed, we need to have shelter, we need to drink, those kind of basic human needs. Then we need to feel safe, whether it's physical safety, emotional safety, whatever that might be. We need to feel love and belonging somewhere. We need to build our esteem, and then we can kind of actualize those goals. So you need to be able to kind of build upon each of those levels in order to have your highest motivation and reach your goals. And then the last type of motivation is social, surrounding yourself with positive people, because the people that you're with can support you or they can, unfortunately drag you down. So whether it's people who are like, yeah, you know what, so-and-so does a great job as a nurse, I really want to be like them. Or in some cases it's, ooh, they don't do a great job, I don't want to be like them. So, but surrounding yourself with a positive network and positive role models is going to help you. All right, the next part is managing stress. Again, really applicable, especially now during this pandemic. So just some basic strategies. Most of these I'm sure you have heard of, you utilize, but just as a reminder, basic things: sleep well, eat right, and exercise. We know these things, easier said than done more often than not, but trying to kind of pour into yourself these things to make sure that you are well rested and you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of everything else you need to do. Also, part of relaxing and managing stress is being mindful, just being aware of what's going on right now in the moment. Well, how do you do that when you're working and going to school and you're being a parent and you're taking care of other people? And so you want to try to remove distractions, deep breathing. Often we breathe very shallowly, and so we need to be reminded, like, we need to take deeper breaths to breathe in and breathe out, calm ourselves down, pay attention to what's going on around us in terms of, like, look, what do we see, what do we hear, ground ourselves, really focus on one thing at a time. We talked about single tasking before, so just being more mindful, and then avoiding things that are going to actually end up hurting us in the long run. They might feel like they're crossing out things in the moment, but they're actually causing more problems in the long run. All right, and then our chapters are talking about being resilient and grit. So what does that mean? Resilience is your ability to bounce back after a traumatic or tragic event. I think that it doesn't always have to be traumatic. Failing a test or failing a class, and then coming back and studying and doing better, that's resilience too. So it doesn't always have to be like some major event. Although I would say that a lot of you may have some examples of resilience right now during COVID. Maybe your plan wasn't to take classes online, or your plan wasn't to work as many hours, but you're bouncing back, you're working through it. And grit is the resilience over a long-term basis. So you're sticking with something because you're deeply committed to it over a long-term basis. Perseverance is, again, very similar. You stick with it even when there's more time and energy than originally expected. Our chapter also talks about something called growth mindset. We want to have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I'm going to go back to math. Fixed mindset is, I'm horrible at math. Nothing will ever change. That's a fixed mindset. And you're right. If you think that way, nothing will change. But if you have a growth mindset, like, you know what? I'm horrible at math, but if I maybe get a tutor, if I put in extra work, if I take an extra class, I can improve. And so having those different mindsets will really make a big difference in how you progress academically and really through anything. And so you'll see a little bit about that in the chapter. And then we start wrapping up with some support. So again, making a strong support system. And when I say support, when I went through my doctoral program, my husband was amazing because he took the kids for me, to the outside to play while I studied, and he was really supportive, but he couldn't really understand what I was going through in terms of being a student because he never worked on a doctoral degree before. It's a whole different ballgame. And so it's okay to have different people for different kinds of support. You may have your friends and family cheering you on, but it's also helpful to have someone who is kind of in your circle, so to speak. They know what it's like to be going to class. They can be kind of what I call them critical friends. You can rely on them. Sometimes you just need to vent to them because they understand what you're going through. But having support in both your personal and academic life is really important. And campus resources can be a source of that support. And that's been my goal throughout the semester, to introduce you to a lot of these things to make sure that you know where to go when you need help. And again, as I stress, you've paid for most of these services already, so utilize them. Get your money's worth. And then finally, the chapter ends on celebrating success. And we want to celebrate because you did a good job. So you want to make sure that when you study and you get a nice grade, or when you were really tired and you made it to class on time every day. Sometimes it's little things you need to celebrate, and celebrations could look a little different. Maybe it's you give yourself a coffee because you're on time and running early, or you get a good grade, so you're going to take yourself out for dinner. Whatever the case is, celebrate, share. It increases your overall happiness, your well-being, and improves your motivation. And so this is actually going to be part of your journal for this week. Or sorry, not journal. That's my face-to-face class. Your discussion post. All right, so that is chapter 7. And again, as always, please spend a little bit more time in the textbook, especially on parts that you need a little bit more brushing up on or would like to find more about. Okay, so here are your assignments. You do have a discussion post this week. I know it's usually every other week, so this is back to back. So you do have a discussion post this week. So make sure you post your original response in the discussion by Wednesday for week 15 attendance, and then everything else is due Sunday. So let's get into the assignments. Your chapter 7 discussion is what we just ended on. Share a successful experience you've had this semester and explain why. Again, remember your prompts need 250-word responses. So some people are still in the 100 range. If you're close, it's fine. I give you full credit. But if it's well below, I do take some points off. But post a successful experience you have had this semester and why. And actually, I need to change that. You have until, I'll make a note to change that. You have until Wednesday for attendance and then Sunday for your responses. This is when I moved it over from week 16. So attendance due Wednesday, responded to classmates by Sunday. You need to tell us a successful experience. If it's not classroom related, that's okay. Sometimes just like getting your work schedule balanced with your school schedule, that's successful. It can be completing a class successfully, it can be attendant, anything, and why. Okay. All right, the next one is your Chapter 7 assignment, success or failure. Here it is. So you are going to look at these 10 examples. Remember, Chapter 7 talked a little bit about how making mistakes and failure isn't necessarily a bad thing because you can learn from them. So here are 10 pretty famous, well-known people in their own fields who failed a lot before becoming successful. So what you are going to do is try to guess who each one is talking about. And this is where I know if people listen to my videos or not, because do not Google these. I do this in class as an activity and they have no access to their phones, the computer, and it really is just kind of a fun type thing. You're going to get full credit no matter what. So even if you get most of them wrong, you're still going to get full credit. So I want you to try to guess because I always think it's fun to see who you think they're talking about because a couple of them are quite tricky, and so I'll know if you Googled them and got them all right. So what you'll do, you can do it in a Word document, but you can also just click into the assignment and, under write submission, just do your, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So look at each one, and who do you think they're talking about? They give you little clues, and just write down your guess. Again, no Googling. Challenge yourself, have fun with it. You'll get full credit just for turning it in and trying. So that is due Sunday. Last thing you're doing for week 15 is counseling support. So again, kind of timely since we're toward the end of the semester, kind of a stressful time in the semester. Here we go. Here's our counseling services. So we do have counseling services on campus, and you can see like COVID has kind of taken over. As soon as you log in, you can see that, but there's lots of resources here. So I want you to scroll through the page. Like there's lots of tabs over here, links to click on to try, and even if you don't need counseling, maybe just resources. Maybe you just need to learn how to okay, I need to think about why my anxiety is so high. So it's going to give you some resources for different parts of our mental health because we have to be mentally healthy to be able to be successful. So you can see there's our counselor's name. Here's a list of the resources and things that counseling services does. Lots of information. So I encourage you to click around, look at the hotlines we have there, look at the different services we have there. You can request appointments. So what you will do is after you spend some time on the website, you're just going to discuss how you or someone you know could benefit from this resource. And you don't have to get too many personal details. You don't have to give exactly why. You can be general unless you want to share. Just why would counseling support services be helpful to you or maybe a friend or a colleague or a peer that you know that they could utilize and get some use from that. All right, so those are your 3 assignments for this week. Who's that failure where you are not looking up, but you are guessing the 10 successful people who did a lot of failing first. You're sharing your celebrating success story in your discussion. Wednesday is your attendance post, responded to classmates by Sunday. And then your resource reflection on counseling. So everything else is due on Sunday. Just a heads up, and you kind of saw it because of the discussion post I forgot to change there. Week 16 ends on a Friday. It's in your syllabus, and I think I've mentioned it in a previous video. You have until Friday. It's December 18th is our last day of class. So that's when your your Chapter 7, Week 16 will be done, and you'll see all this in there as your Chapter 7 quiz and your final project. So just keep that in mind as we're working. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and hope everyone has a great week. Bye.